I found out my parents had a secret family, and I found my secret sisters. Hey guys, I never thought I'd be here, writing something like this. But I guess that's life for you, full of unexpected turns. To start, I need to give you guys some context. I am Adam, 28, living in Atlanta. I have a pretty decent life, good job, nice apartment, a girlfriend I adore. My parents, Tom and Linda, have always been a bit reserved, but I figured it was just their way. They were great parents, so I never really questioned anything. But recently, things started to feel off. My parents would have these hushed conversations when I visited, and there were a few times when I'd catch them exchanging these weird, almost guilty looks. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe they were just dealing with some personal stuff or something. I mean, parents are people too, right? But then, I started noticing some inconsistencies in the stories they told about their past. Dates didn't match up, and certain details seemed to shift depending on who I was talking to. I let it slide until a few weeks ago when I was at my parents' place, helping them clean out the attic. We were sorting through old boxes, reminiscing about the past, and I came across this old scrapbook. It was a bit dusty, so I opened it, hoping to find some funny childhood pictures. Instead, what I found left me completely stunned. There were photos of my parents with two young girls, probably around my age, and they weren't just random kids. They were in pictures with my grandparents, aunts, uncles, everyone. My heart was pounding as I flipped through the pages. There were birthday parties, holidays, family trips, all with these two girls. And then I saw it. A photo of my mom holding a baby, clearly right after giving birth, with my dad and those two girls standing next to her. The date on the back said it was taken just a year before I was born. I didn't know what to think. My parents had always told me I was their only child. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I wanted answers, but I also didn't want to confront them without knowing more. I decided to do some digging on my own first. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those photos and what they meant. I started searching through social media, looking for any clues. After hours of scrolling and searching, I found a profile that made my heart stop. It belonged to a woman named Jessica, and she looked exactly like the older of the two girls in the photos. I clicked through her pictures, and there she was, with another woman who looked like the younger girl. They both lived in Miami. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to piece everything together. I looked through old family albums, hoping to find more clues, but most of the photos from that period were missing. I called my parents' old friends, asking if they knew anything, but they all seemed to be in on whatever this secret was. The more I dug, the more I felt like I was living in some sort of bizarre soap opera. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I confronted my parents. I showed them the scrapbook and demanded to know what the hell was going on. They looked at each other, and then my mom started crying. My dad took a deep breath and told me to sit down. What they told me next shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. They admitted that I had two older sisters, Jessica and Emily, who lived in Miami. My mom had gotten pregnant with me right after a particularly rough period in their marriage. They had been struggling financially and emotionally, and when I was born, they made the difficult decision to move to Atlanta and start fresh. They thought it would be best for everyone if they focused on raising me, while my sisters stayed with my grandmother in Miami. They said they planned to tell me when I was older, but then life got in the way, and they never found the right moment. I was furious, heartbroken, and utterly confused. How could they keep something like this from me? How could they just leave my sisters behind? I stormed out, needing space to process everything. Over the next few days, I went through a whirlwind of emotions. I was angry at my parents for lying to me, sad for the sisters I never knew, and guilty for having the life that they were denied. I decided I needed to meet them. I reached out to Jessica on social media, explaining who I was and what I had discovered. To my surprise, she responded almost immediately, saying she and Emily had always known about me and had been waiting for this moment. So here I am, packing my bags for a trip to Miami to meet the sisters I never knew I had. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to find out. So after the initial shock and anger subsided, I spent a lot of time thinking about what to do next. I was torn between wanting to confront my parents again and just running away from it all. But ultimately, I decided I needed answers from my sisters first. I wanted to hear their side of the story before making any further decisions. I reached out to Jessica on Facebook. My heart was pounding as I typed out a message, trying to explain who I was and what I had discovered. I felt like an intruder, barging into their lives with this bombshell. I hit send and waited, nervously checking my phone every few minutes. It felt like an eternity, but she responded within the hour. Jessica's message was surprisingly warm. She said she and Emily had known about me for years and had always hoped I would reach out one day. She shared that their childhood had been difficult, growing up without their parents, but their grandmother had done her best to take care of them. She told me that they both lived in Miami and that they would love to meet me. I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. On one hand, I was glad they weren't angry with me, but on the other, I was nervous about meeting them. What if we didn't get along? What if they resented me? There was only one way to find out. I decided to take some time off work and booked a flight to Miami. I didn't tell my parents about it. I needed to do this on my own terms. The flight felt endless. I kept replaying the conversation with my parents in my head, feeling a knot of anger and betrayal in my chest. When I landed in Miami, I rented a car and drove to a hotel near the beach. The city was vibrant and alive, a stark contrast to the turmoil I felt inside. I checked into my room and sat on the bed, staring at my phone. It was time to message Jessica and set up a meeting. I typed out a message, asking if we could meet up the next day. She responded almost immediately, suggesting we meet at a cafe near their apartment. I agreed, my nerves getting the best of me as I imagined all the possible outcomes of our meeting. That night, I barely slept. My mind was racing with thoughts of what to say, how to act, and what I would learn about my family. The next morning, I got up early, took a long shower, and tried to mentally prepare myself for the meeting. I felt like I was stepping into a different world, one where everything I thought I knew about my life was turned upside down. I arrived at the cafe a bit early, my hands shaking as I ordered a coffee. I sat at a table by the window, watching people pass by, my heart pounding with anticipation. Finally, I saw them, Jessica and Emily, walking towards the cafe. They both had a mix of curiosity and apprehension on their faces, mirroring my own emotions. When they walked in, I stood up, feeling a lump in my throat. Jessica, the older one, gave me a tentative smile, while Emily, the younger one, looked more serious. We introduced ourselves, the awkwardness palpable. We sat down and ordered drinks, trying to break the ice with small talk. After a few minutes, Jessica took a deep breath and said, "I guess we have a lot to talk about." I nodded, feeling a surge of emotion. She told me about their childhood, how they had always known about me but were told that our parents thought it was best to keep us apart. Emily added that their grandmother had tried to explain it as a necessary sacrifice for the sake of everyone's well-being. I listened, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. They showed me pictures of our parents from when they were younger, and it was clear that there had been a lot of love in those early years. Jessica and Emily didn't seem to harbor any resentment towards me, which was a huge relief. Instead, they were curious about my life and eager to share their own stories. We spent hours talking, learning about each other, and slowly bridging the gap that had been created by our parents' decision. It was an emotional roller coaster, but by the end of the day, I felt a sense of connection with them that I hadn't expected. As the sun set over Miami, I realized that this meeting was just the beginning. There were still so many questions, so many unresolved feelings, but at least now I knew I wasn't alone. I had sisters, and despite everything, we were determined to build a relationship. After that initial meeting with Jessica and Emily, I returned to my hotel room feeling emotionally drained, but oddly hopeful. It was overwhelming to think that I had sisters who had known about me their whole lives, while I had been completely in the dark. I needed some time to process everything we had talked about. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Jessica. She and Emily wanted to spend more time together before I headed back to Atlanta. I agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. We decided to meet at their apartment that afternoon. They lived in a cozy place in a lively part of Miami, and I was eager to see more of their world. When I arrived, they greeted me warmly. Their apartment was filled with photos, some of which included our parents from way back. It was clear that they had tried to maintain a connection to our family, even from a distance. We spent the day talking, sharing stories, and getting to know each other better. It felt like we were making up for lost time. In the evening, they brought out some old scrapbooks their grandmother had kept. As we flipped through the pages, I saw more pictures of my parents, my sisters, and even some of me as a baby. It was surreal to see these glimpses of a life I never knew I had. Jessica and Emily shared stories about growing up with their grandmother, the challenges they faced, and the moments of joy they experienced. It was during this time that they revealed more about why our parents had made the decision to move to Atlanta with me. They explained that our mom had struggled financially after I was born. Our parents' marriage was on shaky ground, and they thought it would be best to start fresh in a new city. They hoped that by focusing on raising me, they could give at least one of us a stable life. Jessica told me how hard it was for them to accept this decision, but they eventually came to understand that our mom had done what she thought was best at the time. They didn't harbor any ill will towards her or our dad, but they did feel the pain of being separated from their parents and from me. I was still processing all this when Jessica suggested we go out for dinner. They wanted to show me their favorite spot in Miami. We ended up at a charming little restaurant with outdoor seating, surrounded by twinkling lights and live music. It was the perfect setting to continue our conversation and deepen our bond. As the night went on, we talked about everything: our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. I felt an incredible sense of connection with them, something I hadn't expected to happen so quickly. They were my sisters, and despite the years of separation, we shared a bond that was undeniable. The next day, we spent more time together, exploring Miami and sharing more about our lives. They showed me places that were special to them, and I shared stories about my life in Atlanta. It felt like we were slowly piecing together the puzzle of our family history. By the end of my trip, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for having found my sisters. It was still hard to fully grasp everything that had happened, but I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in my life. We made plans to stay in touch regularly and to visit each other as often as possible. When I finally returned to Atlanta, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was happy to have found my sisters, but there was still a lot of unresolved tension with my parents. I knew I needed to confront them again, this time armed with the knowledge and perspective I had gained from Jessica and Emily. I decided to sit down with my parents and have a candid conversation about everything. I wanted to understand their side of the story, to hear why they made the decisions they did, and to find a way to move forward as a family. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. Returning to Atlanta felt surreal. I had gone to Miami seeking answers, and had come back with not just answers, but two sisters I never knew existed. The trip had been emotionally exhausting, but profoundly rewarding. However, there was one thing left to do: talk to my parents again. I spent a few days collecting my thoughts, thinking about how to approach the conversation. I knew I needed to be calm and open-minded, but I also needed to be honest about how hurt and betrayed I felt. My parents had their reasons, but I deserved to know the full story. One evening, I invited them over to my apartment. They looked anxious when they arrived, probably anticipating another confrontation. We sat down in the living room, and I took a deep breath before starting. "Mom, Dad, I went to Miami and met Jessica and Emily," I said, watching their faces closely. My mom's eyes widened, and my dad looked down, clearly uncomfortable. "Adam, we never wanted to hurt you," my mom began, her voice trembling. "We thought we were doing what was best for everyone." "I understand that now," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But you need to understand how this affected me. I grew up thinking I was an only child. Finding out like this, it shattered everything I thought I knew." My dad finally spoke up. "We always planned to tell you, but the longer we waited, the harder it became. And then life just kept moving forward." They explained that when I was born, they were in a financial and emotional crisis. They barely had the means to support one child, let alone 3. Moving to Atlanta was a last-ditch effort to start over and provide a better life for me. They felt they were giving Jessica and Emily a better chance by leaving them with their grandmother, who had a more stable situation at the time. "We were wrong," my mom said, tears streaming down her face. "We should have found a way to keep you all together. We thought we were doing the right thing, but we see now how much we have hurt you and your sisters." The conversation was raw and painful, but it was also cathartic. We talked for hours, unpacking years of buried emotions and untold stories. My parents apologized repeatedly, expressing their regret and guilt. I could see the toll it had taken on them, too. I told them about my trip to Miami, about meeting Jessica and Emily, and how we had started to build a relationship. They were relieved to hear that my sisters didn't harbor resentment towards them, and that we were trying to move forward as a family. "We want to meet them," my dad said, his voice choked with emotion. "We want to make things right." I agreed to arrange a meeting. It wouldn't be easy, but it was a step we needed to take to heal as a family. We all had to confront the past and find a way to forgive each other. A few weeks later, we planned a trip to Miami. My parents were understandably nervous, but they knew it was time to face the consequences of their decisions. I contacted Jessica and Emily, and they were open to meeting our parents. They were cautious, but willing to try. When we arrived in Miami, there was an air of anticipation and anxiety. We met at a neutral place, a park near Jessica and Emily's apartment. Seeing my parents and my sisters together for the first time was an emotional moment. There were tears, awkward hugs, and a lot of nervous smiles. We sat down and started talking. My parents apologized, explaining their reasons and expressing their regret. Jessica and Emily listened quietly, their expressions unreadable. Then Jessica spoke up. "We've had a lot of time to think about this," she said. "We were hurt, but we've also had years to come to terms with it. We just want to understand why." My parents explained everything again, this time directly to my sisters. It was clear that this was a long overdue conversation. Emily, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "We missed you," she said, her voice breaking. "We always wondered why you left us. But we understand now. It doesn't make it easier, but we understand." There were more tears, more apologies, and a lot of honest, raw emotion. By the end of the day, we had taken significant steps toward healing. It was clear that it would take time, but we were all committed to rebuilding our relationships. The next few days were spent together, as a family. We went out for meals, shared stories, and tried to bridge the gap that years of separation had created. My parents were determined to make amends, and Jessica and Emily were open to giving them a chance. When we finally returned to Atlanta, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't felt before. There was still a lot of work to be done, but we were on the right path. We planned to visit each other regularly and stay in touch, determined not to let the past dictate our future. Jessica and Emily and I kept in touch almost daily. We'd text, have video calls, and even send each other random pictures throughout the day. It was like we were making up for lost time, slowly building the sibling bond we were denied for so long. My parents were also making an effort, regularly reaching out to Jessica and Emily, trying to rebuild their relationship with them as well. About a month later, I decided it was time to take the next step. I wanted to spend more time with my sisters, to really get to know them, beyond just conversations over the phone. So I planned another trip to Miami, this time for a longer stay. I took a week off work and booked a hotel near their apartment. When I arrived, Jessica and Emily were waiting for me at the airport. Seeing their familiar faces brought a sense of comfort and excitement. They insisted I stay with them instead of at the hotel, and I agreed. It felt right, like we were truly becoming a family. That week was one of the most fulfilling of my life. We did everything together. Cooked meals, went to the beach, explored the city, and even had movie nights. We laughed, we cried, and we shared stories about our lives. I learned so much about them, and in turn, they learned about me. It was like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. One evening, we decided to go through more of the scrapbooks and old photo albums their grandmother had kept. As we flipped through the pages, Jessica pointed out a picture of our mom holding all three of us as babies. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness for the time we had lost, but also a deep sense of gratitude for the connection we were building now. Emily looked at me and said, "You know, we've always wondered what it would have been like if we'd grown up together. But I think what's important now is that we're here, making new memories together." Her words resonated with me deeply. It was true, we couldn't change the past, but we had control over our present and future, and I was determined to make the most of it. By the end of the week, I felt closer to my sisters than I ever thought possible. Leaving Miami was hard, but we promised to visit each other regularly and to keep our bond strong. They even made plans to visit me in Atlanta soon, which gave me something to look forward to. When I got back to Atlanta, I sat down with my parents once more. I shared stories about my time with Jessica and Emily, about how amazing they were, and how much it meant to me to have them in my life. My parents were genuinely happy to hear it, and expressed their gratitude that we were all working to become a family again. We talked about the future, and how we could keep strengthening our relationships. We planned family visits, and decided to have regular video calls, including everyone, to stay connected. It wasn't perfect, and there were still lingering feelings of hurt and betrayal, but we were all committed to moving forward together. A few months later, Jessica and Emily came to Atlanta for a visit. Having them in my city, meeting my friends, and seeing my life was an incredible experience. We did all the touristy things, visited the Georgia Aquarium, walked through Piedmont Park, and even caught a Braves game. My parents joined us for some of the activities, and it was heartwarming to see them all together, laughing and bonding. One night, after a particularly fun day, we sat in my apartment, reminiscing about our childhoods and imagining what our future family gatherings would look like. It felt like we were finally starting to heal the wounds of the past and building a new, stronger foundation for our family. Reflecting on everything that had happened, I realized how much I had grown through this experience. I had learned the importance of forgiveness, the power of family, and the necessity of facing difficult truths. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. To anyone out there going through something similar, my advice is this: don't be afraid to seek the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Embrace the emotions that come with it, and give yourself and others the grace to heal. Family isn't always perfect, but it's worth fighting for. With Jessica and Emily's visit to Atlanta, it felt like our family was truly starting to heal and rebuild. We had spent a lot of time together, and it had been heartwarming to see how easily my parents and sisters got along. It felt like the beginning of something new and beautiful. After their visit, we kept up our regular calls and texts, sharing our daily lives and planning future visits. My parents were making a genuine effort to reconnect with Jessica and Emily, and I could see the bond between all of us growing stronger. Then, something unexpected happened. I received a message from an old family friend, Mrs. Anderson. She had known my parents when they lived in Miami and had stayed in touch over the years. She said she had something important to share with me and asked if we could meet. I was curious and a bit apprehensive. What could she possibly have to tell me that I didn't already know? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown. When I arrived, Mrs. Anderson greeted me with a warm smile, but there was a hint of concern in her eyes. "Adam, I've been following your story through your parents," she began, sipping her coffee. "I think there's something you need to know, something that might help you understand why things happened the way they did." She went on to explain that my parents had been dealing with more than just financial struggles when they made the decision to move to Atlanta. My father had been involved in a legal dispute that had drained their resources and added immense stress to their lives. On top of that, my mom had been battling a severe bout of depression after my birth, which had made it incredibly difficult for her to care for 3 children. Mrs. Anderson revealed that my parents had made the decision to leave Jessica and Emily with their grandmother, not just out of financial necessity, but because they genuinely believed it was the best way to ensure all of us would be cared for. They had hoped to reunite us all one day when their situation improved, but life had gotten in the way, and they had never found the right moment to bring us back together. I was stunned. This was a piece of the puzzle I hadn't expected. It added a new layer of understanding to my parents' decision. They weren't just trying to run away from their problems. They were trying to protect us in the best way they knew how. I thanked Mrs. Anderson for telling me and left the coffee shop with a heavy heart. I needed to talk to my parents again, to let them know that I understood, and to try to find a way to fully heal our family. That evening, I went to my parents' house. We sat down at the kitchen table, and I shared what Mrs. Anderson had told me. They were both visibly emotional, my mom's eyes welling up with tears. "We didn't want you to know," my dad said, his voice breaking. "We didn't want you to carry that burden. We made mistakes, but we did what we thought was best at the time." "I understand now," I replied, feeling a wave of empathy wash over me. "It doesn't make it any less painful, but I get it. You were trying to protect us." We talked late into the night, sharing more about those difficult years and the impact it had on all of us. It was a deeply emotional conversation, but it brought us closer together. For the first time, I felt like I truly understood my parents' choices, and I could see how much they had struggled with the consequences. In the following weeks, I shared this new information with Jessica and Emily. They were both surprised, but also understanding. It helped them to see our parents' decisions in a new light, and it eased some of the lingering resentment they had felt. We continued to visit each other regularly, alternating between Miami and Atlanta. Each visit brought us closer together, and our family gatherings became a source of joy and healing. My parents worked hard to rebuild their relationship with Jessica and Emily, and it was heartening to see the progress they made. As time passed, we established new traditions. We spent holidays together, took family vacations, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. The pain of the past didn't disappear, but it was softened by the love and connection we were building. One summer, we all decided to take a trip together. my parents, Jessica, Emily, and me. We chose a beach destination, a place where we could relax and enjoy each other's company without any distractions. It was a magical week, filled with laughter, bonding, and creating new memories. One evening, as we sat around a bonfire on the beach, my mom spoke up. "I'm so grateful for all of you, for your understanding, your forgiveness, and your love. We've come a long way, and I'm proud of the family we've become." We all echoed her sentiments, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had taken. It hadn't been easy, but it had brought us closer together than we ever imagined possible. Reflecting on everything that had happened, I realized how much I had grown through this experience. I had learned the importance of empathy, the power of forgiveness, and the strength of family. We had faced our challenges head-on and emerged stronger for it. To anyone out there going through something similar, my advice is this: don't shy away from the difficult conversations. Seek the truth, no matter how painful it might be, and give yourself and your loved ones the grace to heal. Family isn't always perfect, but it's worth fighting for. Back in Atlanta, life started to settle into a new normal. My parents and I continued our regular visits to Miami, and Jessica and Emily reciprocated by coming to Atlanta frequently. Our family gatherings were becoming less about addressing old wounds and more about creating new memories and celebrating our present. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I received a phone call from Jessica. Her voice was filled with excitement. "Adam, guess what? Emily and I found some old letters from Dad to Grandma. We were going through more of her things, and we found a box in the attic. You have to come see this." Intrigued, I immediately made plans to visit Miami the following weekend. The anticipation of uncovering more family history was exhilarating. I couldn't wait to see what those letters contained. When I arrived, Jessica and Emily were waiting with the box of letters. We sat down at their kitchen table, and they carefully handed me the first letter. It was dated a few months after my parents had moved to Atlanta. "Dear Mom, I hope this letter finds you well. I wanted to write to you because there are things I need to get off my chest. The decision to move to Atlanta and leave Jessica and Emily with you has been the hardest thing we've ever done. Every day, I question if we made the right choice. I miss them so much it hurts, but I know they are safe and loved with you. Life here is challenging. We're trying to make a fresh start, but the guilt and sadness are overwhelming. Mary's depression is still a constant struggle, and I worry about her every day. Adam is our bright spot, though. He's growing so fast and brings us so much joy, but I can't help but feel that something is missing. I hope one day we can bring our family back together. Until then, please know that we are doing our best to make a life here, and we are eternally grateful for everything you're doing for the girls. Give them all our love. Love, John." Reading my dad's words was like peering into his soul. I could feel the weight of his guilt and the depth of his love for all of us. It made me see him in a new light, not just as a father who had made difficult choices, but as a man who had struggled immensely with those choices. We spent the rest of the day going through the letters. Each one painted a vivid picture of my parents' early years in Atlanta, their struggles, their hopes, and their longing for the family they had left behind. It was clear that their decision had never been easy, and they had carried the burden of it every single day. Jessica and Emily were equally moved by the letters. They provided a sense of closure and understanding that we all needed. We decided to keep the letters as a testament to our family's journey and the sacrifices our parents had made. As time went on, we continued to build our relationships, not just as siblings, but as friends. Jessica and Emily became confidants, people I could turn to for advice and support. We shared everything: our successes, our failures, our fears, and our dreams. One particularly memorable moment came when Jessica called me, ecstatic to announce her engagement. She had been dating her boyfriend, Mark, for a few years, and he had finally popped the question. I was overjoyed for her and couldn't wait to celebrate. The wedding planning process brought our family even closer. Jessica asked Emily and me to be part of her bridal party, and we spent countless hours together, planning, shopping, and dreaming about the big day. My parents were actively involved too, and it was heartwarming to see them so invested in Jessica's happiness. The wedding day arrived, and it was a beautiful, emotional celebration. Watching Jessica walk down the aisle, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and joy. Emily and I stood by her side, tears in our eyes, as she and Mark exchanged their vows. It was a day filled with love, laughter, and the kind of happiness that comes from being surrounded by family. After the wedding, we continued our tradition of regular visits and family gatherings. The bonds we had formed grew stronger with each passing day. My parents, Jessica, Emily, and I were no longer just a family trying to heal from past wounds. We were a family creating a future filled with love and togetherness. Reflecting on everything that had happened, I felt an immense sense of gratitude. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been incredibly rewarding. I had gained two amazing sisters and had rebuilt my relationship with my parents. We had faced our past, learned from it, and emerged stronger. To anyone out there dealing with family secrets or unresolved issues, my advice remains the same. Seek the truth, embrace the emotions, and give yourself and your loved ones the grace to heal. Family isn't always perfect, but it's worth the effort. As the years went by, Grace grew into a lively and curious child. Her presence brought an indescribable joy to our family, and each milestone she reached was celebrated with love and pride. Emily was an incredible mother, and watching her with Grace was a constant reminder of how far we had come as a family. One day, while visiting Emily and Grace in Miami, we decided to go through more of our grandmother's belongings. Emily had found an old trunk in the attic that we hadn't explored yet. Inside, we discovered more letters, photographs, and a few personal items that shed light on our family's history. Among the items was a diary that belonged to our grandmother. It chronicled her life, her struggles, and her thoughts during the years she raised Jessica and Emily. Reading her words gave us a deeper understanding of her sacrifices and the love she had for all of us. One entry stood out to me. It was dated shortly after my parents had left for Atlanta. Today, I watched John and Mary drive away with Adam. My heart aches for them, for the choice they had to make. I see the pain in their eyes, the weight of their decision. I promised them I would take care of Jessica and Emily, and I will. These children are my world now, and I will do everything in my power to give them a happy life. One day, I hope they can all be together again. Until then, I will hold this family together with all the love I have. Her words brought tears to my eyes. Our grandmother had been the glue that held us together during those difficult years. Her strength and love had been the foundation upon which our family was built. We decided to create a new tradition in her honor. Each year on her birthday, we would gather as a family to celebrate her life and the legacy she left behind. It was a way to remember her sacrifices and to ensure that her love continued to bind us together. Our first celebration was a beautiful and emotional event. We shared stories about her, looked through old photographs, and expressed our gratitude for the love she had given us. It was a day filled with laughter, tears, and a deep sense of connection. As our family continued to grow, so did our bond. Jessica and Mark welcomed their first child, a boy named Ethan, and our family gatherings became even more lively with the addition of another little one. Grace and Ethan quickly became inseparable, their laughter filling our homes and hearts. My parents embraced their roles as grandparents with enthusiasm and love. They made it a point to spend as much time as possible with their grandchildren, creating memories that would last a lifetime. Watching them with Grace and Ethan, I saw the healing power of family and the enduring strength of love. Reflecting on our journey, I realized that the pain and challenges we had faced had ultimately brought us closer together. We had learned to forgive, to understand, and to cherish each other. Our family was not defined by our past mistakes, but by our ability to overcome them and build a future filled with love and unity. To anyone out there dealing with family secrets or unresolved issues, my advice is simple. Don't give up. Seek the truth, embrace the emotions, and give yourself and your loved ones the grace to heal. Family isn't always perfect, but it's worth the effort. During one of our annual celebrations of our grandmother's birthday, we decided to take a trip to her favorite place, a small beach town just a few hours from Miami. It was a place she had often talked about, a place filled with happy memories from her own childhood. We rented a beach house and spent a week there, soaking in the sun and reminiscing about the past. One evening, as the sun was setting, we all gathered around a bonfire on the beach. The children were playing in the sand, their laughter mingling with the sound of the waves. My parents, Jessica, Emily, and I sat in a circle, reflecting on how far we had come. "I think Grandma would be proud of us," Emily said, her voice filled with emotion. "She always wanted us to be together, and we are." Jessica nodded. She was the heart of this family. Everything we are today is because of her love and sacrifice. We sat in silence for a while, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Then, my dad spoke up. "I've been thinking a lot about the past," he said, "about the choices we made and the consequences they had. I've carried a lot of guilt over the years, but seeing all of you here, happy and together, makes me believe that we did something right." My mom reached over and took his hand. "We made mistakes, but we also made a lot of good choices. And the best choice we ever made was to keep loving each other, no matter what." Their words resonated deeply with me. Our journey had been filled with ups and downs, but through it all, we had remained a family. We had faced our challenges head on, learned from our mistakes, and come out stronger on the other side. The next day, as we were packing up to leave the beach house, Jessica pulled me aside. "Adam, I've been thinking," she said. "I know we've come a long way, but I feel like there's something more we need to do. Something to honor Grandma's legacy and everything she did for us." "What do you have in mind?" I asked, curious. "Well, I was thinking about starting a foundation in her name," Jessica explained. "Something that would help families in need, especially those dealing with similar situations to ours. We could provide support, resources, and maybe even scholarships for kids who need them." I was taken aback by the idea. It was ambitious, but it felt right. "That's a fantastic idea, Jessica. Grandma would love that." We shared the idea with the rest of the family, and everyone was on board. Over the next few months, we worked tirelessly to establish the foundation. We named it Grace's Hope Foundation in honor of both our grandmother and Emily's daughter, who had brought so much joy and hope into our lives. The foundation quickly gained support from our community and beyond. We organized fundraisers, partnered with local organizations, and began offering scholarships and support programs for families in need. It was incredibly fulfilling to see our grandmother's legacy live on in such a meaningful way. Running the foundation brought our family even closer. We worked together, combining our strengths and resources to make a difference in the lives of others. It was a powerful reminder of what we could achieve when we stood united. One day, while visiting a school that our foundation had supported, I met a young boy named Alex. He reminded me of myself at his age, bright, curious, and full of potential. His family had been through a lot, but thanks to our foundation, he was now thriving. "Thank you," Alex said, looking up at me with wide eyes, "for helping my family. I want to be like you when I grow up." His words touched me deeply. It was moments like this that made everything worthwhile. Our family's journey, our struggles and triumphs, had led us to this point. We were able to give back, to make a difference, and to create a legacy of love and hope. Reflecting on our journey, I realized how much we had all grown. We had faced difficult truths, confronted our past, and built a new future together. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every moment. One summer, we decided to host a large family reunion. We invited relatives from both sides, some of whom we hadn't seen in years. The event was held at a beautiful park near the beach, a place that held special memories for us. As we gathered, it felt like our family had come full circle. We were stronger, united, and more connected than ever before. During the reunion, I had a moment to reflect on our journey. I watched as Grace and Ethan played with their cousins, their laughter filling the air. Emily and Jessica were chatting with our aunts and uncles, while my parents were sharing stories with the younger generation. It was a beautiful sight, one that I would cherish forever. Later that evening, as the sun set, we gathered around a large bonfire. My dad stood up to make a speech. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," he began, his voice filled with emotion. "Our family has been through a lot, but we've come out stronger on the other side. We've learned the importance of love, forgiveness, and unity, and I'm proud of each and every one of you." He paused, looking around at all of us. "This reunion is a testament to our resilience and the bonds that hold us together. I couldn't be more grateful for this family." My mom joined him, her eyes shining with tears. I echo John's sentiments. We've been blessed with a family that loves and supports each other no matter what. Let's continue to cherish and nurture these bonds. To our past, present, and future, may we always stay united. The applause that followed was heartfelt and warm. We spent the rest of the evening sharing stories, reminiscing about old times, and creating new memories. It was a night filled with love and connection. As the years went by, our family continued to thrive. Jessica and Mark had another child, a girl named Lily, and Emily's daughter, Grace, blossomed into a bright and kind-hearted young girl. Our parents, now retired, spent their days doting on their grandchildren and volunteering at the foundation. One day, while visiting my parents, I noticed my dad looking through an old photo album. I sat down beside him, curious. "What are you looking at, Dad?" He smiled, a nostalgic look in his eyes. "Just some old memories. It's incredible how much we've been through and how far we've come." We flipped through the album together, each photo telling a story. There were pictures of my parents when they were young, snapshots of my childhood, and photos of Jessica and Emily growing up with our grandmother. It was a visual journey through our family's history. As we reached the end of the album, my dad turned to me. "Adam, I want you to have this." I was taken aback. "Are you sure, Dad? This album means a lot to you." He nodded. "It does, but it's time to pass it on. You've been the heart and soul of this family. You brought us back together, and I'm forever grateful for that. This album is a testament to our journey, and I want you to keep it safe." Tears welled up in my eyes as I took the album. "Thank you, Dad. I'll cherish it." Over the next few years, we continued to build on our family's legacy. The foundation grew, helping more families and making a significant impact in the community. Our family gatherings became larger and more frequent, filled with laughter, love, and the warmth of togetherness. One evening, while sitting on my porch with Emily and Jessica, we reflected on our journey. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Jessica said, her voice filled with awe. Emily nodded. "It's been an incredible journey, and it all started with you, Adam. You brought us together." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. It wasn't just me. We all played a part. We faced our past, embraced our future, and built something beautiful together. As we sat there watching the sunset, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Our family had faced its challenges, but we had come out stronger and more united. We had created a legacy of love, resilience, and hope. One day, I received a phone call from a journalist. She wanted to do a feature on Grace's Hope Foundation and its impact. We arranged a meeting, and soon she was at our family home, interviewing us and documenting our work. It was both exciting and a bit nerve-wracking, but it felt like an opportunity to further our mission and share our story with a broader audience. During the interview, I shared our family's journey, the discovery of the secret family, the healing process, and the creation of the foundation. The journalist was deeply moved by our story, and her article, published in a major newspaper, brought an outpouring of support and interest from around the country. The increased visibility was a double-edged sword. While it brought more attention and resources to the foundation, it also meant more scrutiny. We had to navigate the complexities of managing a growing organization while ensuring our family remained at the core of everything we did. Amid the whirlwind of increased activity and public attention, we took time to focus on what truly mattered: each other. We made a conscious effort to balance our professional commitments with personal time, ensuring that our family bonds remained strong. One Sunday afternoon, we organized a family picnic at the park where we had held the reunion years earlier. It was a chance for everyone to relax, enjoy each other's company, and take a break from the hustle and bustle of our busy lives. The children ran around, playing games and laughing, while the adults chatted and reminisced. At one point, I pulled Jessica and Emily aside. "I've been thinking," I said, "about how much we've accomplished and how much we've grown. It's amazing to see where we started and where we are now." Jessica nodded, her eyes filled with emotion. "It really is. I'm so proud of everything we've built together, and I'm grateful for all the support we've received from everyone." Emily smiled. "Me too. It's been an incredible journey, and I wouldn't trade it for anything." As we continued to enjoy the picnic, I couldn't help but reflect on the lessons we had learned along the way. Our family's journey had taught us the importance of resilience, forgiveness, and the power of unity. We had faced our past, embraced our present, and worked tirelessly to create a future filled with love and hope. Later that evening, as the sun set and the park began to empty, we gathered around a bonfire once again. My dad, with a look of contentment, began to speak. "This picnic is a reminder of how far we've come and how important it is to stay connected. We've built something truly special here, and it's because of all of you." My mom joined him. "We've faced challenges and made sacrifices, but we've also created something beautiful. Our family is stronger than ever, and that's something to be incredibly proud of." The evening ended with laughter, storytelling, and a renewed sense of connection. It was a perfect reminder of what truly mattered: the love and support we had for one another. As I looked around at my family, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. We had come a long way from the secrets and struggles of our past. We had built a legacy of love and hope, and we continued to grow and thrive together. To anyone out there facing family secrets or unresolved issues, my advice is to never lose hope. Seek the truth, embrace the emotions, and work towards healing. Family is a journey, not a destination, and it's worth every step. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support and advice have been invaluable. Here's to the family we've built, the legacy we've created, and the future we continue to shape together.